So tell me about yourself is probably one of the questions that is not going to miss in any job interview. It is a very common yet a very important interview question. I believe every now and then when most people go for interviews, I think this is one of the questions that they rarely or they never fail to prepare about, because this is one of the key interview questions that if you talk to someone who's done interviews or someone who's been a panel, they'll probably tell you that this question alone can help the panel make a decision about a candidate. Most of the time you're wondering, why do they even want me to tell them about myself? Some of the challenges that people face, or rather that candidates face with this question, is that you don't know exactly what type of information the panel wants you to share with them. Again, you also don't know to what extent they want you to share that information. So you don't know how far to go and maybe how deep to go, or maybe how shallow to go. So mostly you find that's why candidates get a lot of confusion when they're asked this question. So today I want to take you through how you can answer this question when you get it in a job interview. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So let's start with why this question is asked. Why do the panel ask this question? So this question is asked to set the pace for the interview. This question typically sets the pace for the interview and determines how the interview will run through. Most of the time, if you don't answer this question well and you're keen enough, you can actually tell the panel maybe as detached or something if you're very keen and very observant. So this question is used to set the pace for a job interview. This is also a question where the panel gives you a chance as the interviewee to set a first impression. So through this question, you're able to really just determine whether you're going to get this job or whether you're going to be considered or not based on how you answer the tell me about yourself interview question. Another reason that this question is also asked is the interviewer wants to get a general information about who you are in relevance to the job that you're being interviewed for. So then, how should you answer this question? So before we get to how to answer it, I think it is important we get to know what are the key things that you need to consider when answering this question. What should you do? What should you not do? How far should you go? How far should you not go? So some of the key things that you got to consider is that you got to keep it very professional, because number one, an interview is a professional, or rather a very formal conversation. So you don't want to share things that are personal when giving information about yourself unless the panel asks you to do so. So the personal information that maybe I'm talking about here is mentioning things like you're married, you have children, even going as far as saying you're the fourth born or the what born in a family of I don't know how many people. So you see those personal informations, this is not the time, or this is not the question that really seeks to get that. And the moment you go to those personal questions, you're actually going off what the interviewers want to hear. So what this question typically needs is who you are in terms of your relevance to the job. So then you got to stick to answer, or rather share information that will be able to tell the panel who you are in relevance to this job. Another thing that you need to consider when you ask this question is, apart from being very professional, you got to keep it very brief. I know maybe you're asking how many minutes, should I go for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever minutes. I really don't want to say keep it 2 minutes, keep it 5 minutes, but keep it brief. Here is why I don't want to maybe just give you a specific minute or a specific time frame. People are at different career levels. There's someone who is already highly experienced. There's someone who's just starting off. You wouldn't expect those two people to share information about themselves in the same time. Someone who's already experienced, maybe they've worked for 10 years, they've been at an entry level, a middle level, they've been a manager. When they're speaking about their experience, when they're sharing about who they are in terms of their work experience, you may not expect them to take the same time that an intern or someone who's just getting into the job market will share about themselves. But again, that does not provide a leeway for you to become wordy and share a very long introduction. That brings me to my third point on what you need to consider. You need to be very observant and learn how to read the panelist body language. So why you need to understand or know how to read the panelist body language is sometimes where you can introduce yourself or you can speak and go overboard, go beyond, or rather even take long. And you'll notice maybe the panel is detaching or the panel is becoming bored. So at that time, just stop and just summarize. But just maybe an ideal time frame that you should spend in answering this question should not be more than, it should be at least maybe 3 to 5 minutes. You should not go beyond that. Unless you really have a wide experience or you really have a long experience that is relevant to that job that you really feel you have to share. So then how do you answer this question? So when answering this question, we want to break it down into some very important key pointers. So this question, number one thing that you need to bear in mind is that we are going to structure it into 3 main parts. That is the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. And when answering in these 3 key parts, you need to consider again 3-step approach when you're answering this question. That you need to talk about your past, present, and the future. So I'm going to explain what this means. So the 3 parts that I said that you need to answer this question is 3 parts: the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. In this introduction now, you want to speak. In the introduction, you want to speak about who you are, just the basic, like thank the panel for giving you the chance to interview, talk about your academic qualifications. That there you will be mentioning maybe the institution where you went to, what type of a degree or diploma or whatever, what is your level of education. So if I was to answer this question, maybe let me just give you an example. At that point, at the introduction point, I would go like this. When I'm asked, now tell us about yourself or tell me about yourself, I will start by first thanking the panel. Thank you so much for giving me the chance to interview for this role. My name is Nelly Akungu and I'm a HR professional with a degree in human resource management from XYZ University. So I've said my name, I've thanked the panel, I've talked about my degree in HR, and probably if I have more, I will mention a higher diploma, maybe a certification in HR, and all the qualifications that I have academic-wise. So when I get to the body, this is how I would answer. And before I get to that, now into the body, what you need to talk about in the body now. So the body, you'll realize that the body is now wider. So the body is what you need to speak about the past and the present. The past means your past experience. What have you done before? Which organizations have you worked for? What are the skills that you've gained over time in these different roles? What roles have you held? Then what skills have these jobs given you? What skills have you been able to get, or rather have you been able to acquire over time through in working maybe in these positions? Bear in mind that these skills you're talking about or the work experiences that you're talking about must be relevant to this job. And guys, that's why I say before you get into an interview or before you attempt this question, you really have to have gone through the job description. So then you're able to pick the skills that are relevant and the responsibilities that are relevant. Because you might have been in a similar job before, or you might be quite experienced, but you're not carrying out the responsibilities that this job entails. So you need to be very specific, go through the JD, understand the key responsibilities of this job, understand the skills that are required for this job. Then when you're coming up with your answer around the introduction, then you're very clear on what skills are you going to mention and what responsibilities. Maybe being very experienced, you have a wide range of responsibilities that you've been carrying out. You may not be able to mention all of them, but at least picking maybe at least 5 and 3 or 4 skills that are relevant to this job is really cool and will really set you apart and will really bring out the relevance you have for this job. So here is how I would answer the body part. I'll say I am a human resource generalist with over 7 years of experience. And over the 7 years, I have worked or I've held different positions. I've worked as a talent acquisition specialist. I've worked as a human resource assistant. I've worked as a talent manager. I've worked as a, so I'll list the roles that I have. And in these positions, I've been able to, these are the key tasks that I've been able to perform: learning and development, performance management. I'll speak about administering employee benefits. I'll speak about maybe working around culture and transformation in the organizations that I've worked with. In all these jobs, I've been able to gain the skills which I believe are quite important for this job. One of them being communication with clarity. I've been able to gain skills around being attention to detail. And now that is where you list the skills that are relevant to the job that you're being interviewed for. So you understand the way I started. I've already talked about my education. I've already talked about the experience that I have. I've mentioned the previous roles. And of course, you can be mentioning the organizations. It is okay. I've already mentioned the roles that I've held before. I've talked about the skills that I've gotten in this job. Then now, tell them how you'll be able to transfer these skills or how these skills are relevant. And you can even say maybe having gone through the requirement of that job, you believe these skills will be important, or you believe these skills will be able to bring value to this organization. So then the body is done. So in the body, you've talked about the past, that is also your past experience. You've spoken about your current, that is your current role, the skills you've been able to get from your current role, and how these skills prepare you for this position. So then we get to the conclusion. So as you close, you also need to speak about something that is very key. As you close, briefly mention the achievements. It's not just enough to mention the skills you've gotten and all that. Highlight key achievements. You might not really have time to talk about so many of them. And guys, that's why I said a successful answer here is really dependent on how much is it tailored to what this job wants. So speak about the relevant achievements that you've gained over time in your previous. You can mention maybe 2 or 3 key achievements. Then speak about your interest. Why are you interested in this organization? In maybe speaking about achievement, I'll give an example of, I was part of this project. You mentioned a project that you had actually taken successfully. It might not even necessarily be a project, but anything that you've achieved over time. And show interest. The reason that I've applied for this job is because of your brand as an organization. We all want to associate ourselves with powerful brands outside in the market. So you speak about maybe liking their brands. You've been watching them closely and you realize that their employee retention rate is high, because nowadays with the technology, you can actually be able to get that information easily. So tell them what is it that, or your interest for the job. Maybe your current job you feel is not giving you enough opportunity for growth or to utilize your skills, or you feel you've reached maybe a place that you cannot grow further, so you're not seeing a clear growth path for you. Then you feel this job is going to bring more challenges and probably a growth for you. So talk about the interest, talk about those achievements, and as you finish this conclusion, you thank them and probably tell them that as you go along with the interview, you'll be able to interact and they're free to ask more questions to help them further understand your fit for the role. If you go through the step-by-step introduction, the steps that I've provided, then you'll be able to come up with a very well-tailored introduction. And before I end this video, guys, one disclaimer or one warning that I like giving is that please don't memorize answers to these interview questions, but rather take time to prepare. So when you prepare, go over it over and over, then it is able to really just come out naturally and authentically without the panel telling that you just memorize these answers. So yes, so that is how you can answer this interview question in your next interview. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope this content was relevant. If there are any topics that you want me to speak about in the next videos, then please feel free to leave them in the comment section. And again, if you've not subscribed to this channel, then this is a good opportunity for you to subscribe and join this community where we are all about learning and making ourselves strategically positioned for those good jobs that we want in the markets. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.